it's Raquel Bowman here, and today I'm here sharing my first layout using the gorgeous Endless Summer collection by Coco Vanilla Studio. This is a new collection which will be available super soon to retailers to purchase, and it is just a really gorgeous colour palette, sort of corals, blues with touches of wood grain. And what I'm showing you now is the photo that I'm going to be scrapbooking, which is one of my kitties taken last summer. And what I've done prior to beginning this page is cut out a sunburst type shape on white cardstock with my cameo, as well as the Summer Lovin title, which are both available in the Silhouette store. The Summer Lovin title I've cut on white cardstock, but then the open part of the title I've backed with some vellum. And my idea for this layout is to have the design or the photos and the sun towards the top of the layout, and then I'm wanting to cluster either side of the photo the gorgeous florals from this pattern paper. So I found a floral that incorporates most of the colours in the collection. So it's got the orange, the red, the pink, and then pops of that minty green. And I decided that once I'd cut that out, I would cut that floral in half and put half on either side. And then what I've also tucked to the side of those florals is a couple of the ephemera pieces, which are that same hibiscus flower as well. I think they're a hibiscus flower. And I've tucked those to either side to balance out those clusters. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to map my photo on this corally coloured paper. I did sift through the papers and try and see if it would work with any of the others, especially the wood grain paper that's in the collection. But the coral one I felt looked the best with those floral designs. So I fold up the edges of that photo mat just to give it a little bit of dimension, and then adhere my photo down. My photo's a black and white one because the colours in the actual photograph were really, really busy. The kids were playing under a sort of like a dinosaur sprinkler, and they had a ball this day, but it's blue and purple, and then their bathers were yellows and really, really bright colours that wouldn't have coordinated. It would have been a really hard colour palette to scrapbook. So I've popped it on black and white, and it just makes it easier to be able to document this moment without it competing too much with the photo competing too much with the papers. So I'm just adding a little bit of stitching and just for some detail with white thread around the sunburst. And all I'm doing is just using the presser foot, and at every corner I get to just stopping the machine and turning the piece of cardstock until I've gone around all of the edges. And now I'm going to adhere the vellum to the back of the die cut title. It does take a little bit of time, but those fine line bottles make it nice and easy because you can apply all the glue to those really super thin die cut words like with that summer without having too much excess glue going everywhere. And it did take me a while to get all of that lined up perfectly because I actually cut sort of the negative, I guess, out of the vellum, so I just had to make sure that it was all lined up. Some of it wasn't, so I'm just trimming off the excess little bits then just to make it work, and then I'm just adding the insert for the R, which needed to be adhered down later. Okay, so once I've got the title all ready and stuck down properly, I work on adhering my top part of my layout, which is the mat around the photo, as well as the doily and the fussy cut flowers and the die cut sun. Before I do that, I just have a look at what I might embellish with, and at the top right hand side I was going to add a couple of clouds and a wood veneer and other bits and pieces. I wanted to incorporate some of the veneer into the page, but I decided against the clouds. I felt like they just didn't look quite how I wanted it to. But what I do want to do is create a bit of a cluster to the left, a bit more of a detail, I guess, in the cluster on the left of the photo. So I'm just cutting out one of those little labels to layer with that cluster on the left, and I've added a flare and some veneer. This does end up changing by the end of the layout, but that's what I begin with. And then this little wording was actually on one of the 3x4 cards, and it says, I think it says, "Every summer has a story." So my thought was that I would put that sort of at the bottom there of the title. And I do want to add and keep that little wood button there as well. And now I'm just going back to that adhering stage like I talked about that I was about to do. So I'm adding some foam behind my photo to pop that up. And then I decide that I want to add some foam behind that sunburst as well. So this becomes a little bit time consuming, backing all of those rays with some foam, but it makes sure that the sunburst is evenly dimensional. So I sort of worth the time that it might take to add those little strips of foam. So I do that, and then I adhere that down. And to help me adhere that down and keep it centered, I use my T-square ruler, and it just makes sure that the actual sunburst is centered from the top of the page, as well as not centered from the top, sorry, but centered from the middle of the page. And then I just wanted it sort of in that top half, so I knew that I had to leave some room for my title underneath. And then I'm adhering down these flower clusters, and I actually I fold my foam adhesive over so that I've got double the height, just to make those pop even further than the sunburst. Sorry, I'm lost for words today. So I make them pop even more from the sunburst, because then my photo has dimension as well. So there's sort of like some double dimension happening around that sunburst shape. So I adhere down both those clusters. The hibiscus ephemera, I just adhere directly to the page. And then I'm going to be adding that wood veneer heart, and then some more of the wood veneer buttons in the end. I use my ruler again just to make sure that that Summer Lovin title is even. So I want it to be centered with the photo on the page, and I want it to be just a little bit under where the photo sits. So I keep lifting my page up, and that's just to check by eye if I think that it looks straight as well as centered on the layout. So I add now that Every Summer Has a Story onto the page, and part of that I add with some foam tape, and the other part is just directly onto the page. About this point, I decide that I want to get rid of that flare and just have another ephemera piece there. And I decide to add that little scalloped border just as extra detail underneath the photo. I didn't adhere it very straight, so I end up trying to peel off the end so that I can stick it up that little bit more. And with that Summer Lovin title, because the vellum is transparent, I wasn't able to put foam directly under those vellum pieces, so that the foam adhesive is only under the Lovin word, which means that it's sort of not, the summer part isn't dimensional as well. But once I adhered down the Lovin, it sort of lifted up that summer part anyway, and I just bent up the top of that summer just so that it's raised off the page. So I add those extra wood buttons, and then I'm going to add a little scattering of enamel dots to finish. And I'm going to leave you shortly with some close-up images of the layout. So thanks for watching, and just stay tuned to the Cocoa Vanilla blog to see some more layouts from the design team using this collection, and stalk your retailers for this in store. Thanks everyone. Bye.